What's good, y'all? It's your boy Ross back at it again with another video. So I'm going to check out Most People Are Broke Lamborghini Salesman on who actually buys their cars. Now, is this a surprise? No. A lot of people tend to try to flex on social media and, try to portray a lifestyle that they really don't live or really don't have, but they buy these very expensive vehicles or, rent out these very expensive vehicles or whatever the case may be to look like they have a lot of money when they may not have it. And that's just part of just people in general. Even before social media was a thing, people have been doing is, renting out cars or leasing out cars, which there's nothing wrong with leasing out a vehicle. I think a lot of these vehicles, it would make sense to lease them out. But people try to portray like, oh, I own all these are all mine, when in actuality, they're probably somebody else's, or, that's not the case. They're not really balling like they are. They may have some money, but they're trying to portray something that they are not. And we see it a lot of times. So we're going to check out some of, what this Lamborghini salesman has to say about some people that probably try to come in there to flex like, hey, I got all this money and stuff, and that may not be the case, man. Let's check this out. Should be a good one.
So how many people walk into the Lamborghini dealership pretending to be rich, pretending to be a buyer? And what are the tells?
Yes, absolutely. People come in with their fake watches and, overly designer clothes, and that they're trying to pretend that they can buy something and they can't. They're just trying to get a test drive or something like that. And I can relate to that because I did that many times as a high schooler, trying to go out and test drive interesting cars with some success. But you can't let those people waste your time when you actually have a job to do. And it really doesn't take long in the way that you should sell a car to ask the right questions that they would just not have even thought about, like how they're actually going to use the car, how it relates to other goals that they have, why they want it and what they believe it is versus what you have to explain it actually is, and things like that. And so if they're just itching to get in the car immediately, let's go, then that they weren't going to buy it anyway. But if you can actually have a conversation with someone and they've got a reasonable approach to the idea of purchasing this car, in most cases, you can end up with, knowing really, really quickly how hard it's going to be for them to do so. Now, the ones that are stretching are the best kinds of customers. The ones that can easily write the check are the hardest to motivate to actually do so. But somebody who knows, like, look, I may be hard to get financed because of this, and this, and they're very forthcoming about that, then those times, you do stand a really, really good chance of getting this person into a car because you probably have more financing resources at your disposal than they may know about or things like that. And so it's really just about asking a lot of questions and making sure that you're framing them in a very positive way and where their answers will become the reasons that they should.
And that's very telling that he said the people that actually can write the check, whatever numbers on the check, they're actually a little bit more like reserved when actually buying it because they're trying to figure out, is it really worth it? Even though they got the money to get it and they can write that check, whatever digit on there, they still be like, and that's actually kind of interesting when you think about it. Like, yeah, I have the money to buy it. The question is it something that I really want to do? Potentially, they may have some reserves about it because, let's keep it a buck. I think the notion that if you got money, a lot of money, that you're going to blow it and spend it. A lot of people that have real deal money, a lot of times they're not blowing the money like you think they are. They're probably investing it back into themselves, companies, whatever the case may be. But a lot of times, these really rich individuals, yeah, they may have some nice cars here and there, but they're not actively just blowing their money just because they know that this is money that they're trying to make last, for generations and stuff. So that's actually a very interesting point.
Should want to purchase the car.
How often is it that someone comes in and they're just making a terrible financial decision, that this person can technically qualify, but it's not smart whatsoever? Is that common? And has there ever been a situation where you've just said, hey man, we could get you this car, but you probably shouldn't do this?
Well, as you first framed that question, I was going to say, well, in 2013, we got a McLaren franchise. And so that early in McLaren's current existence, they were miserably unreliable cars. And so they would all break. Always. The failure rate of these cars in the first week of ownership, where they may have come back in on a tow truck or at least had some very meaningful fault, was 100%.
Jeez.
And so when you would sell them, in most cases, they were pretty profitable deals because there was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement for the cars. So you made good money, but you knew like this was going to become a problem always. And so in that regard, there were times where people were buying cars that you knew were troublesome, and you would at least try to help them to understand that. Like, I know that you love Lotuses, but the best way to sell someone on a lease is to try to talk them out of it. And you'll tell them, hey, they're not super comfortable and they're not like easy to get into, especially if you are parked next to somebody like, oh yeah, I love that, it's a nice car. It's like, oh, just remove everything, and then they're not that expensive in terms of parts, but they do go through like tires and brakes really fast. Oh yeah, for handling, that's awesome. I love that. I'm gonna do it myself, and I'm gonna stuff in it. It is a Honda motor, but you want to make sure that it's maintainable, or Toyota and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, that's so cool. It's gonna be more reliable. It's gonna go 100,000 miles. I'm gonna drive it all the time. But like if you hurt the clamshell, like, it's really expensive, so just make sure that you've got good insurance and just be careful, like, don't bump into stuff. Oh yeah, I love that, it's so light. And they're just talking themselves into it over and over and over again, and it's like and
the funny thing is him just being like trying to, even though he's still trying to sell the car, but he's like giving out the hey, you may want to just be careful. Oh no, I still want it. I'm like, all right. That's crazy, because you would think a car salesman is like gonna try to avoid all of those things, but him being someone is like, hey, look, I'm just keeping it real with you. This this could be an issue. This may not be something that you totally are prepared for. Just putting that out there.
They always buy them. Like, no one can go look at a Lotus and not buy it. Unless it breaks while they're driving it or catches on fire, which happens. But in terms of like a financial decision where somebody is really in a rough spot, again, most of the time those people are stretching so hard to be able to buy these cars, and they know, and they're all well aware, like, I can't sell this car because I have so much negative equity that I'm rolling from the next one. I had this guy, nicest guy in the world, just had kind of a normal job, made low six figures, and had owned an Aston Martin DB9.
Low six figures is kind of crazy. That's still some good money, bro. Low six figures.
For a really long time. And we did a lot of really long-term car financing, these like 12-year, 15-year loans. And, if the car doesn't go down in value, that can be a great way to own it. And so he owed effectively $100,000 on a $50,000 car, because Astons depreciate like crazy. He didn't want to put much money down. And so he just wanted to have a newer car. And that's a hard thing to do, because effectively, if you're trading a $50,000 car for a $150,000 car, you can adjust the numbers up. So you get $100 for your trade and you pay $200 for the new car. And so you're still paying the same $100,000 delta. The bank doesn't know that the numbers were different, but that's too much to hide. Like, hiding 20,000, maybe 30,000, maybe hiding 50 grand takes some doing. And we tried so many deals, and I ended up selling him an Aston Martin Virage when we got an incentive on those back in 2012. And he was the happiest guy in the world. Now, he owed at that point at least 100 more than that car was going to be worth immediately. But he loved it, and that was his thing, and he was going to probably pay it for 5, 6, 7 years, and he was fine with it.
So when you see people driving like really expensive exotic cars, what percentage of those people have them financed and can barely afford them?
It's going to vary a little bit by market and by demographic, but I would say 75% are financed.
Wow.
Certainly in my sales experience, 75%.
When you say 75 financed, is that because that's the smart move to make because they got a low interest rate and it makes more sense to arbitrage the money? Or is that because they just can't afford it?
No, because they cannot afford it.
Damn.
So a lot of people think that if you drive a supercar, generally speaking, you're kind of loaded. Like, I feel like especially a lot of, I could be wrong here, but like girls, they'll see a guy driving a nice car, they're like, ooh, he's got money. But you'd say that's generally not the greatest.
If you're driving a supercar that's less than 5 years old, you should not assume that person has a lot of money. That is
really?
Yeah.
Damn.
If they're driving, an iconic vintage or significant car, something that's 10, 20, 30, 40 years old, for sure, there's a really good chance, because those are harder to finance.
Yeah.
But if they've got a brand new Huracan, no.
Interesting.
Didn't the Dave Ramsey like millionaires?
You see, if they got a brand new Huracan, And here's the thing, that could be the case. That could be the case. They may not actually have that much money, you know. People make that assumption with me. Oh, I got two Benzes. I'm like, yeah, I got two Benzes, and yeah, I'm able to afford it, but I ain't just out here swimming in cash either. You know what I'm saying? You know, these are cars I plan on keeping, you know, for a very, very, very long time. I don't plan on getting rid of them even when I pay them off. This is something, you know, these are just kind of something for me. I'm trying to build a collection of cars, Mercedes cars that I like. So I plan on keeping these, paying them off, and just going from there. It's not something I want to sell anytime soon. But I mean, the notion of that, and even then, I don't, you know, I'm not the type of person to be like, try to flex in like, oh, I'm making this much money, and you know, you should fuck with me because I got this. No, but it's really telling that he, you know, someone that's works at a dealership or has worked at a dealership can see these people and, you know, see the financing behind it, but they prop it up as, well, I'm in a Lamborghini, I'm in this, you know what I'm saying? I'm really stacked up with the money. That may not even be the case. It's crazy, but I can see that happening.
Studies show that most millionaires drive Toyotas.
Yeah.
And look at this. Top 10 car brands driven by millionaires. Look at this. BMW's in there, so it makes sense. But look at this. That's crazy. Most millionaires don't drive flashy cars. When people don't waste money to look wealthy, they have money to actually become wealthy. That's the fact. That's a fact. Think about that. Most millionaires, you would never know they were millionaires, even if, you know, buy their house, for sure. But buy their car, you wouldn't even know a lot of times, because guess what? They don't spend all that money on those cars. The only people that really do are the car enthusiasts, that people that they've always wanted these cars, so they'll have that. But most millionaires, they don't really give a damn.
Yeah, Toyotas, Hondas, and the F-150 pickup trucks.
Yeah, but that data is massively skewed because most millionaires are retired.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
So most millionaires are 60 plus years old. If
That
you
is a
ask
great
what
point. Yeah.
millionaires under the age of 40 drive,
yeah.
it would be BMWs, Mercedes, Audis.
Yep.
Those three
It's-
brands.
Believe it or not, the Tesla Model Y and Model 3 were the most common in Reddit Fat Fire. But that
Interesting.
skews to a lot of California, Vancouver.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
But yeah, that was the most common. Although really quick, before we go,
That was actually pretty dope. Breaking it down like that. It makes sense older millionaires will be driving that, but the younger millionaires are driving the Mercedes, BMWs, you know. And even then, those cars, even though the maintenance, you know, is more costly, those cars are not even like, they're like I wouldn't even consider them like the super, super high end, like the hypercars or the supercars. Like, that's when you get into the McLarens of the world. That's when you get into like the Lamborghinis and the Ferraris. That's where you really get into the very expensive, the Porsches. Very, very, very high end. And even though Mercedes, BMW, and Audi, they're more obtainable in the mid class, you can still, if you get their best version of those vehicles, they can still run up the price, but not like some of the Porsches, some of the Lamborghinis, and some of the Ferraris of the world, even Aston Martins and stuff like that. But this was a very dope video, and if anything that you've taken from this video is to work within what you got. Don't try to go out there and impress others. If you want something, go for it and get it. If it makes sense for you financially, go for it and get it. But don't try to get something because, oh, someone else has it. No, get it because, you know, this is something that you work towards. This is something that you worked, you know, how many days and nights to get. You feel me? Don't try to get cars or items to try to flex to show like, oh, I finally made it, but you out here struggling. No, get things that make sense for you at the right time. I wish I would have, learned, kind of took that lesson a few years ago. But guess what? I'm still very thankful for the cars that I was able to get. And even though it wasn't the best financial decision, it's something that ultimately is kind of created other things for me. It's kind of got me into the car scene and stuff like that. So, there's trade-offs to my personal decision, but these are things that I've wanted to get and obtain, and it works for me. But I never do it to flex or to show off or to pretend like I'm somebody. No, I'm still the same guy that was very appreciative of driving my 98 Honda Accord until the wheels legitimately fell off. But hey, comment down below. Let me know some other car related videos y'all want me to check out. I definitely will. I appreciate all the love and support. Road to 20K, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.